This was happening when I was a rookie, and in a meeting, we were all in a boardroom. I shared an idea, and it completely got ignored because I was not loud enough. Learning a new skill, even when you're a senior. So a month and a half back, I learned to ride my Yamaha R15. Everybody across the table said, "Are you crazy? At your age?"
Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Side Magazine's She Powered podcast series. Before I welcome today's podcast guest, I'm so delighted to announce the launch of a newest initiative from She Side Global, which is called the SheSpeakers.com.
Women with extraordinary expertise are everywhere, but on most stages, they remain invisible. She Speakers changes that. A curated platform where brilliant women leaders, entrepreneurs, academics, and change makers get discovered, listed, and booked for speaking opportunities they deserve. If you organize events, She Speakers is your go-to for voices that truly represent the world. And if you are a woman with a story and a stage to claim, this is your space. Find your speaker, claim your stage. Visit www.shespeakers.com today.
Now is the time to introduce today's guest, Miss Shwetha Nayak. She has spent over 25 years building workplaces where people don't just perform, but actually flourish. A strategic people business partner who has shaped people strategy at JP Morgan, Marsh McLennan, and Arcadis, Shwetha Nayak is not your conventional HR leader. She's been recognized among the 50 most influential HR leaders globally, honored twice as a Global Women Power Leader in 2024 and 2025, and a CEO Award winner in 2023. She leads with lived experience rather than just frameworks. She writes about boundaries, courage, inclusion, and reinvention. And she lives those values too. She's an exemplary woman who tried her hands at riding a Yamaha R15 because she believes reinvention has no age and courage has no expiry date. A marathon runner, a mentor, and a fierce advocate for cultures built on empathy and conscious action. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Miss Shwetha Nayak to She Side's She Powered podcast. Welcome to the show, Shwetha. Shwetha, tell us, what is that one thing that someone who is watching this podcast should wait for or take away from our conversation today?
Okay, so let me start with a question for anyone listening. Have you ever reached a point where you were doing all the right things, but still felt something was missing? I've been there. And over 25 plus years across working in different industries, companies, cultures, I've learned this one thing. Careers don't grow in straight lines. They grow in your moments of courage, a very hard conversation that you've had with somebody, or balancing priorities, or a change you didn't think you were ready for. And when I look back, I think there were three defining moments, and none of them were promotions. First, I think early on in my career, I learned that competence gets you noticed, but courage gets you trusted. I think I remember a very clear moment when I tried to speak up in a room where it would have been safer to be silent, not just to be right, but just to make sure that I was making a point and my point was being heard. That moment taught me leadership isn't a title, it's a choice. And mid somewhere in my career, I learned the power of reinvention. I realized that if I kept doing what I was good at, I'll stay successful. But if I wanted to grow, I had to stretch into new, unfamiliar territory. And that took a lot of humility, a lot of courage, curiosity, and willingness to take on that new role and let go of the comfort that I was in. Today, I find that in my current role at Arcadis, some of my proudest moments are watching people grow into bigger roles because they were trusted, they were coached and guided and supported. And that's what I really think is creating a legacy. Because for me, creating and developing people and improving their strengths is exactly what meaningful leadership would have been. So that's what I would say is my best career moments or best personal moments. These are not my own wins. They're watching somebody else rise because that's what I finally believed they could. And being the wind beneath their wings is what makes me very happy.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. Firstly, congratulations on this wonderful long career trajectory that you have built for yourself. And it's, as I understand, it's not just about yourself. What you have done is primarily about enabling others. And that's what I think any HR professional would be aspiring to do in her career trajectory, right? So, having said that, I'm also keen to understand about workplace culture and how that actually shapes someone's growth ahead. So tell us more about how your company as well as your role per se helps enable that good workplace culture, and how do you define that?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question, Srini. I think that's one of my favorite topic when I love to talk about workplace culture. There's a lot that you'll find on the internet and on social media. But to be honest, coming from a non-HR background, for me, culture is not what is written on the wall or on the company intranet.
Yes.
It's the tone that your manager uses when you make a mistake. It's whether people can disagree without worrying about retaliation or punishment. It's about whether leaders reward only outcomes or also value the contribution that the person brings to the table. I've seen some great culture decks fail because day-to-day behavior in the organization didn't match the story. And that I have seen quieter organizations build stronger culture because everyday decisions didn't really matter for them. It was more about how you build that trust, how you build those transparencies, and that's how people feel comfortable. Some of the things that I talk about in a culture, when you call as a good culture, the key parameters would be how do you hire and promote people? What do they truly reward? How do you handle conflicts? How safe people feel to be honest?
Yeah.
Can they speak up? And how much leaders actually listen?
Mm.
What I value at Arcadis is that culture is anchored in a very clear belief that our people matter and always come first. We believe in that philosophy that we believe in our people first. That shows up in how leaders make those decisions, how feedback is given, how people are supported, and even careers are grown. It's not about just promotions and criteria and stuff. It could be about giving them the right support and the guidance as well. Not just this when things are easy, but when they become hard as well.
Yeah.
So for me, the strongest cultures are built when people feel respected, trusted, and safe, to be honest. And that consistency is what creates real engagement. Culture is not a poster, it's a pattern for me.
That's nice. That's really wonderful. Everybody talks about culture, and we know different kinds of culture. There are some toxic workplace cultures, which is primarily imbibed in a Western, fast-paced environment. And then there is this bit of a friendly, Eastern philosophical type of a workplace culture. Sometimes I do think about, despite having the best culture, the good people leave, right? We've heard good employees leaving one organization to the other, and then that leaves the HR to think about why would they leave, right? So what do you think are the reasons, despite enabling all kinds of workplace culture and other things, whatever we talk about, how do you think they take such decisions?
So I honestly believe people don't leave their managers or their works, right? They leave because of experience, very poor experiences. And most high performers don't leave suddenly. That shift happens slowly over a period of time. They watch, they observe, they understand that things are not working in the way they would have wanted, and then they slowly decide and disengage, and then they leave slowly. They disengage when growth stalls for them and the learning stops. When recognition disappears and they feel invisible, there's no way that they can share their thoughts openly. They feel that their values don't match what's been actually been rewarded and what's been spoken about in the culture decks, right? I think when the manager quality drops, that's when the high performers lose meaning and impact, and they feel that this is time for them to pack their bags and leave. I often say this, and in a number of situations I've experienced, people don't quit companies, they quit their experiences. And that's the experience of not being heard, not being understood, not being valued. And I feel that's where the leadership has to rise up and provide the right kind of engagement to your high quality and high performers. At Arcadis, we focus very strong on creating that shared journey of progress where we can see our people upskilling themselves, where the skills can be grown, how their work actually meaningfully contributes to something bigger, and how they're supported through the various life stages that they go through when they're working with us. And when people feel invested and connected to the purpose, I think they just don't stay, they thrive. So for me, retention is not just a policy, it's a daily relationship between the manager and the organization and the employee.
That's brilliant. That actually brings me to the question, what if we put ourselves on the other side? See, you spoke about the organizational side. What can high performing individuals or professionals do to set their boundaries right and work in that thriving environment?
Yeah, I think very good question, CV. So for me, boundaries is not a sign of low ambition. I think a lot of people have this myth that it's going to be like when you have a boundary, you are saying that you won't be able to take on more, or you are showing your vulnerability. The biggest myth that I have heard in the organization, and I've been there myself, is that if you say no, you'll be seen as non-committed. The truth is, the best of the best leaders actually respect that kind of honest communication and clarity, especially if you have to say a no. A simple model that I would offer is if you were to be given an option, like for example, you have to do this, rather than saying a complete refusal, you could always look at options. I can do this by a Friday or by Monday. What's your priority? What can I drop? What can I pick up? I mean, that's the kind of honest communication I would anticipate from a high performer, rather than thinking that, I won't be able to do it. Let me say no, or I'll pick it up and non-deliver. So I think that's the sweet spot that we will all have to balance it out. And I think burning out is also a reality today. I think it's not a badge anymore. People don't feel happy that, you're working 24 hours, you're working 16 hours a day. That's not a badge that you can carry proudly into your workplace. I'm being very honest in this case, where I don't think careers have to be treated like a marathon. It's not like a race that you have to win. You don't have to win by running the fastest in year one. You win by staying strong in year 10. So take it in shorter paces, pace it well, just like any runs that you do. And for me, that flexibility and those trust-based ways of communication and working makes a huge difference. When that flexibility is real, people can actually perform much better without sacrificing their life. So for me, that's the crux that really matters. And boundaries itself can be flexible. Doesn't mean that you're cutting short your career.
Yeah, brilliant. This is very interesting when you said about setting your boundaries, and again that relates to the workplace culture that we spoke earlier. However, I also think that when someone is actually trying to set such boundaries or saying no to certain things, or when, especially I see this a lot in women, when someone is trying to speak up in a boardroom, if it's a woman, I would say there's this intricacy, right? You have to be diplomatic, you have to be nice, otherwise you would be considered something else. So how do we actually build this kind of an allyship? So I would say that if there is someone at that time to support me in that boardroom, it would be much more easier for me, right? So for professionals, especially for women, what do you think are the methods to create that allyship in leadership?
Yeah, leadership is something that's very close to my heart. And in Arcadis, I do run a program what is called as Shine. And allyship is one of our work streams that we really, really, rally around for our employees. A small example, and I always go back to this example in every boardroom, because that's the place that I really felt, that changed my perspective on what allyship means. This was happening when I was a rookie, and in a meeting, we were all in a boardroom. I shared an idea, and it completely got ignored because I was not loud enough. So 2 minutes later, somebody else was in the room, repeated it, and got credit. And I was feeling so upset, and that I didn't share my idea so loud enough that people could catch up on it. And that's when a leader who was next to me, he stepped in and he said, I want to come back to what Shweta said. That idea is strong. Now can we build on it? That for me was allyship. Not grand speeches, not big announcements, not cake cutting. It was those micro moments. And those micro moments is what we should be looking for when we say we want to build an allyship in the leadership. Give credit in the room where it is due. Invite those quieter voices into your conversations. Challenge those biases, the unconscious biases that we have, the language barriers that we have, calmly, respectfully, and sponsor those talent who are not there in the room. Maybe there's somebody outside of this room who's capable and who's got that kind of mindset that can really bring in value to the organization. Can we pick up those talent when they're not in the room? That's allyship for me. Creating environments where people feel seen, respected, and able to contribute fully. Allyship is always leadership in action for me, period, especially when no one's watching. And that need not be limited only to the workplace. You need to apply this lens when you're out partying, when you're playing with a bunch of friends, colleagues, or family. That's allyship for me. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a very interesting concept by itself, this allyship and sponsor, having a sponsor in any organization for someone who actually knows that, okay, this person is capable, and someone who actually pitches for you or talks for you even when you are not there, in a good manner, not in a bad manner. So that's the kind of people that we need to build some connects and relationship when you're looking at a long-term career in any organization, I believe. Actually, that also brings me to this part where I've read a lot of literature around the concept of sponsorship when it comes to women who are looking for leadership. You know that women's leadership is still in a very nascent stage in most of the countries. So how do you define that sponsorship angle? Is it the same as allyship that you're talking about, or is it set up with more structured methods? And have you done such experiments in your organization?
So allyship is one of the aspects that I touched upon, where women can be developed into future leadership roles. But more than that, the sponsorship for women also comes in advocating for them, being a mentor or being a coach to them. Many of our women sometimes have the skills, but they lack confidence. They're not very open to being visible. There is always this innate thing like, I don't want to be seen as aggressive. I don't want to build my own brand. I don't want to be shown as someone who's always trying to, build your own brand in the boardroom. I think that's where the leaders can really play a pivotal role in providing those mentorship and those coaching support. For me, I feel that you opening the doors to them. Once the door is open, then it's for the individual to step in and take charge and lead their career from there. But that opening the door is so important that you need somebody who can be a very strong advocate for that individual. And that also is something that has to be evolved over a period of time. A lot of the leaders feel, no, I do not want to do this because I feel that I may be biased towards this individual. But that's where equity counts, right? If everyone was having the same platform and they were all to be treated equal, then we didn't have to have these equitable opportunities for women, gender pay gap analysis. We didn't need to have this. It is a reality, and it's a fact that today not every individual is kind of being treated at the same platform and the same level. And that's where I feel that leaders do play a very, very important role in building that sponsorship. It's not just in terms of providing the opportunities, but also nurturing and developing and giving the right support and the guidance at various point in time. I've seen women at the top even requiring that kind of advocacy, because somewhere you still have that gap. This is why we have the glass ceilings, right? We are not able to go beyond a point, and that's where those leaders who double up as allies can also play a very important role.
That's really wonderful. When we spoke about this allyship and sponsorship, you also touched upon the concept of courage. And sometimes, especially women, I would say in boardrooms and other setup, do lack the courage to speak up. And as you said, sometimes women also have this feeling that, oh, I am old, all the kinds of low self-esteem things. Have you thought about how these things doesn't matter, or how do you motivate someone and help them understand about reinvention? What is reinvention and courage according to you?
For me, means choosing growth over comfort again and again. And there is no age limit to that. There were times I was good at what I did, and that was exactly the problem, because comfort can quietly become your ceiling, right? Reinvention is asking for a stretch role before you actually feel ready. You can wait forever to say, I'm not ready, I want to be ready. But if you are going to do something and you want to try it out, you set it out right at the onset and challenge yourself and say, I'll pick it up. I'll get ready in on the way, but I do not want to be 100% ready. So I'm not going to waste my time. Let me push my comfort levels and let me try and do something different. Learning a new skill, even when you're a senior. So a month and a half back, I learned to ride my Yamaha R15. Everybody across the table said, are you crazy? At your age and at your level, you shouldn't be riding a bike. And I was like, okay, now I'm even more motivated to try this out, because if you're going to put it as an age thing, I'm going to definitely beat my own game. So I learned it. I wobbled. I fell. I have 2 bruises to show up for it. But I was comfortable. I actually felt much happy that I went, against the grain, and I learned a new skill. That's not on my CV, but I'm happy that I did something which I always wanted to do through my growing years. And letting go of that identity in your mind that, I'm only valuable if I'm perfect. I don't think that's the mindset you should have. That is exactly the barrier that you can have to reinvention, because if you're going to be waiting to be 100% perfect, you'll never go anywhere. So for me, courage isn't being loud. It's also updating your skills, updating your competencies, even learning a new skill like a tabla, or learning to ride a bike or swimming. Yeah. That is what you should be very comfortable with. And that's, for me, courage. Sometimes it's also admitting that I need help. A lot of the people don't talk about it because they feel that's showing their emotional vulnerability. So what? But if you are going to be admitting that you need help, I think help will be provided. And that's when you cross that threshold where you feel that you have certain barriers and you're not able to grow. This is where that unlocking the potential also happens. And for me, that's very important when a lot of our ecosystem, whether it's organization, whether it's our family, whether it's our personal friends who can help you invest in your building your strengths, developing your areas of opportunities. For me, reinvention happens then very naturally, very, very organically. And it's the boldest move that one can do to yourself. You're never too late. So for me, for my audience, I would leave this message. You're never too late to learn that one thing that you've always wanted to do. Take that brave decisions, whether it's about taking a career jump, whether it's about changing your domain, or just letting go of something which you have felt that I want to do it. Take that leap of faith and go ahead and do it just like that.
That's brilliant. When you spoke about your Yamaha bike thing, I'm also inspired about it. I've never done that, but I think I should try a bike riding. Okay, anyway, coming back, you are also into running, marathon runner. Tell us how endurance sports actually, what are the leadership lessons you gained from that kind of an experience?
It has been a therapy for me, and also a leisure sport. So for me, it has taught me some of my most powerful leadership lessons till date, especially because I've been doing this 5 kilometer and 10 kilometer races. 5 kilometers is more my specialty. The first lesson that I learned in running is that pacing matters more than the intensity. Anyone can sprint at the start. We've seen all those running marathons where people just kind of start off on a very strong note, can run at the speed of the wind, but very few can actually sustain all the way to the finish. So you have to pace your speed right from the start. I see that the similar trajectory in careers as well. I see the same pattern where most people don't burn out because they lack ambition or talent. They burn out because they run too fast and they run too hard without recovery. So for me, sustaining that success comes from knowing when to push and when to slow down. We all have to go through that trajectory. You cannot be doing like everything at whirlwind space. Sometimes it's important to take your team along. Sometimes you need to understand the pace of the organization. So pace it well so that you're not burning out after running for a very, very long time. The second lesson that I learned, and this is my favorite, where the discipline is very important, being committed, showing up on time, making sure your deliverables are all being met. On race days, you don't rely only on motivation. You rely on the hours of training, the routine, the consistency that happened when no one was watching. The hours that you spend in the morning trying to do the trial runs and the evening that you kind of use for strength training, I think that's the same way the careers also work. They don't seem very different for me. Motivation will fluctuate, but habits, structures, systems, routines are what carry you forward in your time. And the third and the important lesson is your mind gives up before your body does. So make sure your real battle is your internal. So the voice that tells you you can't keep going, you can't keep running. Our careers have got those similar moments where something comes up and there is the self-doubt and there is fear of comparison. There is uncertainty, which happens when every time there is a change in the organization. Don't give up. You have to have your control over your mind so that the bigger obstacles can be dealt with rather than the capabilities. Capabilities are important, but the power of the mind is understated. So you need to keep having that inner dialogue with yourself. That will separate the strongest moments are those that are built in your mind. That helps you to endure whatever can come as a barrier to your professional journey. So running keeps me motivated, and it keeps reminding me that progress isn't built in just winning every race. It's important to build that trust, building that resilience, and staying in the game long enough to make sure that you carry through the finishing line.
Absolutely. I think it's about marathon. That's a good thing about marathon versus 100-meter race. Marathon is all about finishing the race.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of brilliant, leadership insights that you shared from that sports and from your experience of being a runner. Let me bring you back, or rather bring you forward to what is happening currently in the workplace when it comes to AI. And I think there is a lot of uncertainty and sort of fear among people. I think everyone common, like entry level or mid career, even leadership roles. What is your take on what are the leadership qualities that helps a person to navigate through this journey of uncertainty that we are undergoing right now?
Yeah, so AI is a buzzword and everybody is talking about it, CV. So today, I think with AI and constant change, technical skills will keep evolving. So that's the pace that we will have to pick up very quickly. But what really sets apart the leaders who are truly, exceptional are their very human skills, the empathy and the compassion part. First is, I think, judgment. You cannot expect an AI bot to have that kind of wisdom and the judgment, knowing what truly matters and where to focus. I think that's very important, and that's something that our leaders need to, kind of inculcate. Second is the empathy part, which I think understanding people, not just looking at numbers or output. I think the best of the best leaders need to know what helps people do their best work. So especially in uncertain times, and that amount of empathy is something that sets the best leadership apart from the rest of the crowd. The third is the adaptability, being willing to keep learning, letting go of old ways of working. I mean, there are set standards that we've been used to for donkey's years. But if we are able to say, let's think about the new generation. Let's understand how do you work with multi-generation, the new age workforce that's coming in. That's the adjustment that I'm talking about. Sometimes I also feel that leaders need to be reverse mentored rather than the leaders mentoring the new crowd. I think we need to be reverse mentored because we've not understood their ways of working, what drives them, what gives them that kick in the morning. I think we need to understand that, and that organization is going to be far a class apart from all of us because they've understood and they've mastered the art of managing the younger generational workforce. Finally, for me, it's also about integrity, because trust is everything, right? In a workplace, people follow leaders and they believe in respect. So I think if we are able to toe the line when it comes to integrity and ethical ways of working, the best leaders in the future will be really the ones who can hold this team together at the at the same time. So for me, I think future ready organizations will be the ones which are skill powered, which obviously is the strength of an organization, but also you need to be making sure innovation is happening on a day-to-day basis. It's not about bringing in a huge sharp tank kind of a concept. Innovation can be very small. Even those continuous improvement, process changes, maybe just looking at how things are being done. Is this really required? Letting go of things that are not adding any value. That's innovation in real time. So I think at the heart of it, while people remain at the center, what we really need to look at is that not just being AI focused, because AI is here to stay, but also the softer skills that are very important, whether it's about courage, whether it's about integrity, whether it's adaptability and empathetic leadership. That's the one that I would say is the future of leadership.
Excellent. I'm like processing all of the things that you shared. It is really good how you actually broke up all the human things, despite AI coming and taking over the workplace, and we have concerns around that. But the way you broke it down to various aspects, it's really useful, very useful for anyone. So with that kind of insight from your side, I'm also curious to understand, what do you think could be the future of workforce, especially what is that change that you foresee in terms of workplace cultures in the coming decade, or maybe few decades from now?
I think people have to be very curious. They also need to understand what's required in the new world. It's a VUCA world, and we need to understand how do we rise to that occasion. How do we understand what's coming up next? Nobody sees the future. Nobody knows the future. But if we are able to understand from our own perspective what really is important to the organization, I think that's where we are able to then focus more. As leaders, I think we need to be very adaptable to change, because some of the leaders themselves are not sure about how they will survive in the new world. So for us, it's equally important that the leaders have equipped themselves, they have the mindset that they can lead the change for their teams, and they need to be also secure, saying that, okay, I'm adaptable, so I can make sure my team also rises up to that occasion. For the people on the ground, I think my advice is going to be very simple and practical for people who are at mid-careers in their journey. Get brutally clear on what you want next, not a promotion. And basically what kind of work energizes you, what kind of work motivates you. Invest in those skills, not your titles. Titles will expire, but skills will always compound. So if you build something, then in the 10 years, you will see that it has adapted into something far more complex, and that will keep you surviving. Not your title that you're a vice president or you're a managing director. These titles will fade in the new world. And I would also say that build your sounding boards. Have people who can support you, whether it's at the work, whether it's on your personal front. Have mentors, have sponsors, have somebody who's like a peer who's your sounding board, who you can relate to and you can talk to in full confidence, and have those mature conversations, so that you know what you're doing is right, or you probably need to get help somewhere. So for me, that I think is more important than just looking at the skill building, but getting your ecosystem in place, managing that change and adapting to the change and leading the change for the leaders. I think that's more important than everything else.
That's really nice. I think our conversation can go on for hours and hours, because you are such a wealth store. What do you call storehouse? Or you have so much of wealth of knowledge, and that has come from a lot of many years of experience. And it's really wonderful and a privilege for Shesai to host you today. I'm now curious to know the person Shwetha a little more. What are your personal interests and passions? I know you spoke about marathon, but is there anything that might be of more interest and inspiring for our audience, as a woman leader, especially?
Yeah, from a very small town, and I was in my own mind not sure. I always self-doubted. I double guessed everything, and I was someone who always thought that I don't know if I'm in the right profession. So I'm an engineer by qualification, but somewhere along the line I felt I was not cut out for the technical part of the workplace. And that's when I shifted gears and I went into HR. And I think I did the right thing, because I found my true calling. I love, like I told you in the beginning itself, I love supporting people. I love coaching them. That makes me happy when I see somebody successful or has grown in their careers. It makes me feel extremely happy. So for me, these are small things which I feel has helped being in the right profession that I'm as HR. I'm able to position people, help them develop their skill sets and the right mindset. So I think I do feel very happy when I see I'm able to give back to the society who has given this opportunity to me in my early days. Apart from that, I think I'm also someone who likes to declutter my life. I like to keep it as simple as possible. I do not think too much about the playbooks and HR gyan. I stay away from it as far as possible, because for me, these are like everyday concepts. It comes like a common sense, and it builds on, and then I build on it, saying, okay, what would somebody would have done if if this was a position that had come to them, or if this is a challenge that was thrown to them. Someone who's senior enough would have looked at it very differently. What are the other alternatives? What are the possible perspectives that I'm not taking into consideration when I'm taking a decision? So I try to make it as as inclusive as possible, take views from people so that it doesn't look like there was a bias in the way I looked at the problem statement. And that has really helped me, do the right thing in my career. Third, I think very important, I do not focus only on a job or a work. I have a life outside of my work as well. I am a fitness freak. I work out like crazy every day, barring a Sunday where I pretty much like a sloth. But I do make sure that I build myself, my stamina. I want to make sure that I'm fit. And that's how the running also started. I tried to juggle with very different things. Like I told you that I tried to ride a bike because I felt I didn't do this and I wanted to do that when I was a kid. I always used to see my brother take a bike and go out, and I was like, why am I not allowed to do that? Like I said, from a small town, people were like, absolutely no ways, you cannot ride a bike, as a girl. So that's when I said, okay, now I want to indulge. Today the world has changed, so let me try challenging it. So these are some of the things that keeps me going. Every day is a challenge. Now I'm trying to see if I can climb a mountain, and I have my sight, set up on taking the base camp for Everest. I know my family is not very comfortable, but that's the second set of challenge that I'm going to do. How do you convince and influence your own family? So this is a different ball game, but I'm going to be there as well. So that keeps me going. So I love challenges, and any challenge, I'll be like, bring it on. Let's see.
You know what? I've interviewed a lot of amazing women like you on the show, and the one thing which is quite common among all of the women, accomplished women or successful women like you, is this quality. Yes, ready. I'm ready. Give it to me. Take it on, and the willingness to actually experiment new things in their life. And that's definitely a great quality for all successful people. With that, Shweta, just because we have time constraints, I have to say bye for you, bye to you for now. But I'm pretty sure we would have more conversations around various topics related to all your interests and passions. And especially, I think you are definitely someone with a lot of knowledge related to workplace culture. And I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of other organizations that would be benefiting from your insights and your experience in this domain. So Shesite is really glad to host you today, and I wish you, the best ahead in all your dreams. And also, if you're going to Everest Base Camp, we would do a special podcast after that.
Awesome. That would be even more motivating for me. Will do.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Sini, and also Shesite Global for providing this wonderful opportunity. I'm hoping I really did justice to the show as well. And this was my first podcast, so this will always be very close to my heart. Hope we'll have more such projects coming up in the future as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, dear viewers of Shesite She Power podcast series. And with that, we conclude today's episode. I'll see you again in another episode. Hello, everyone. Before you move on to the next video, I have a request to make. If you like this video and this podcast, if you gained some valuable information out of this video, I would request you to click on the subscribe button as well as follow us on our social media pages. The links are given in our description. Also, do sign up to our website, www.shesitemag.com. We have amazing women stories as well as various women initiatives that are getting launched in the coming months. I'll see you there.